It was only a mining drill, until humanity turned it into a weapon of legend. HFY/sci-fi war/epic engineering. When the Zarqathi Empire scorched Titan's surface in the opening volley of the Solar Wars, Earth's military wasn't ready. The orbital fleets were shattered. Mars fell in 6 days. Luna held out for 17 hours. On Europa, where humanity had been carving through the moon's icy crust to reach alien ocean deposits, there were no soldiers, just engineers, technicians, and miners. And one drill. It was called the Grendel. Technically, the full designation was Grendel-class Subsurface Deep Core Excavator, Unit 7, a joint UN industrial mining rig meant to chew through kilometers of rock and ice to tap methane and exotic materials. It was the size of a small skyscraper, moved on magnetic treads, and its fusion-powered drill bit could slice through anything, from basalt to diamond, molecule by molecule. But it wasn't a weapon. Until the war turned everything into one. The Zarqathi scout ships found Europa by accident, chasing a fleeing UN corvette. The base had no guns, no defenses, only the Grendel, half buried in the crust and humming as it chewed downward. Protocol said evacuate. But Dr. Liane Karimi, lead systems engineer, had other plans. She watched the orbital scans, saw the Zarqathi ship drop atmospheric drones and pulse lances to burn the surface clean. Her crew looked to her. Terrified, she looked to the Grendel. It was designed to drill through moons. Why not a starship? The first strike was crude. The Grendel's housing was reinforced, its treads boosted, its drill pressurized to operate horizontally instead of vertically. The entire mining platform groaned in protest as it charged across the ice like a deranged beast. They rammed the Zarqathi lander from below. The drill didn't pierce the shields, but it destabilized the hover system. When the lander crashed, the fusion core detonated. The explosion melted half of Europa's nearby crust, but the Grendel survived, battered and blackened, sinking into the slush. Liane and her crew pulled it out, rebuilt it, modified it. She started calling it Götterbohrer, God Drill. By the time Earth Command re-established contact, Götterbohrer had downed 5 Zarqathi raiders, cut through a heavy cruiser, and inspired a movement. Miners from Callisto, Mercury, and Phobos retrofitted their own rigs. The machines weren't fast, weren't elegant, but they were unstoppable. Giant tunneling death engines coated in armor scavenged from fallen ships and wielding fusion-cutting lances as rams. The Zarqathi called them Iron Serpents. Humanity called them Dread Drills. The final battle of the war, the Siege of Enceladus, was fought not with fleets, but with drills. The Zarqathi's dreadnought Volzarin was anchored deep within the moon's crust, protected by a fortress of lava-forged alloys. It was too well shielded for kinetic bombardment. So humanity burrowed. Dozens of Götterbohrer-class rigs tunneled from below. One by one they fell, crushed by rock or caught in counterblasts, but one made it through. Liane piloted it herself. The drill bit screamed as it hit the command core of the dreadnought, liquefying a wall of metal and flesh in a single burst of pure fury. The Volzarin detonated from the inside. Peace followed. Humanity limped into the new age bloodied but victorious. In orbit above Earth now floats a monument. It's not a statue, it's not a ship. It's Götterbohrer, rebuilt, gleaming. Because the weapon that saved a species wasn't a battleship, or a missile, or a superlaser. It was a mining drill. And humanity made it a legend. Part 2, The Age of the Dread Drills. We never meant to build weapons. But war doesn't care what you meant, it only cares what works. Dr. Liane Karimi. Post-war address to the Terran Assembly. After the war, every major colony on the outer planets remembered what had saved them. Not fighter squadrons. Not sleek orbital carriers. But machines born in mines and trenches, piloted by mechanics. Not soldiers. The Götterbohrer became more than a symbol. It became a blueprint. The forging of the Deep Core Legions. In the Reconstruction years, as the United Terran Authority formed from the ashes of the old nation-states, the UTA commissioned a new core, not for space superiority, but subsurface domination. The Deep Core Legions. They were miners, engineers, hackers, and tunnelers, each trained in zero-atmo operations, high-gravity survival, and mech drill combat, and each piloting a new generation of war machines. The original Grendel drill was industrial, brutish. The new dread drills were beasts of war. Helwer class, fast-boring units equipped with thermal shock warheads and vibro drills capable of piercing city shields from beneath. Mjolnir class, siege drills with plasma reactors the size of locomotives, able to tunnel beneath enemy bases and collapse them from below. Karimi class, named in honor of Lien. This was the pinnacle, a mobile command unit and subterranean fortress, outfitted with fractal armor and a nanite-based regeneration hull. The first Karimi-class unit was called Götterbohrer II. The Siege of Haskar 9. 30 years later, when the Etherian conglomerate tried to seize Haskar 9, a planet rich in quantum ore, they used standard tactics, orbital suppression, drone swarms, and saturation bombing. They didn't expect the dirt to fight back. Beneath the surface, 10 dread drills lay silent, buried, waiting. When the Etherian dropped their mechs onto the continent's surface, the drills rose like steel leviathans, bursting through bedrock, latching onto the enemy walkers, and tearing them open like tin cans. One drill, Maw of Europa, bored straight through the command carrier and emerged on the other side, glowing red, coated in molten metal and alien blood. It never stopped moving. Dread drills in culture and myth. Children across the colonies built models of dread drills. Miners tattooed Götterbohrer's silhouette on their arms. There were holovids, epics, and songs. One martial ballad, The Core Runs Red, ended every verse with the words, "We came from the mines, and we drill into hell." Lien Karimi never returned to war. She taught at a Martian university until her death. At her funeral, the Karimi-class command rig Götterbohrer II bored a spiral into the mountain range near her home and sealed it in diamond alloy. The inscription read, "She gave us a drill. We gave her a weapon." And the stars were never safe again. To be continued in Part 3, Rise of the Subsurface Wars. Wherever humans could not fly, they tunneled. Wherever light did not reach, their drills sang. And the galaxy learned, never corner a species that builds war from work. Part 3, Rise of the Subsurface Wars. When you own the ground beneath your enemy, they never see the end coming. Admiral Reyes Voss, Deep Core Legion tactician. Humanity's star-spanning expansion had always been vertical, reaching upward into the void. But after the Solar Wars, it changed. Now, humanity dug downward. Not just for resources. For power, for control, for war. The battle for Elnath Prime. Elnath Prime was supposed to be impenetrable. Encased in an obsidian-layered planetary shield, armed with orbital batteries, AI-directed railguns, and atmosphere-burn protocols, the capital world of the Uruk Coalition was considered a fortress planet. It held firm against fleets from 5 systems. It laughed off cyber warfare. And its defenders boasted that no invader will ever set foot on our soil. They were right. Humanity never landed. Instead, the Karimi-class unit Earthbreaker entered the crust from Elnath's second moon. A deep-core task force followed, tunneling silently beneath the surface over 27 days, their presence hidden by geostatic dampeners. On the 28th day, 12 drills erupted beneath the planetary shield generator. The shield collapsed. The railguns died. And the orbital fleet moved in. No warning, no survivors. The Deep War Doctrine. With each new engagement, deep core warfare evolved. A new doctrine emerged, taught at military academies across the Terran Reach. Dig, strike, vanish. Rule the ground, and the stars will follow. Deep core units became infamous for mole swarms, clusters of microdrills that infiltrated underground bunkers and detonated silently. Strata collapse protocols, triggering artificial earthquakes to destroy planetary infrastructure without a single orbital blast. Tectonic weaponization, using drill arrays to redirect fault lines and sink entire cities into the planet. No one saw them coming. No one knew they were there until it was far, far too late. Fear in the void. Alien empires, once so confident, began to fear planets more than fleets. The Vrun Collective refused to colonize any world with a crust thinner than 40 kilometers. The Relaxi Treaty mandated seismic scans of every diplomatic venue. And the Arxian Imperium famously launched a sunward colony ship, choosing to build and orbit forever, rather than risk the cursed humans rising from beneath. The galaxy whispered. You can shoot down a ship. You can burn a fleet. But how do you fight something that climbs from the mantle and kills your capital in a breath? The return of Götterbohrer. 75 years after the Solar Wars, the original drill, Götterbohrer, was removed from Earth's orbital monument. Not because it had been forgotten, but because it was needed again. A new threat loomed on the galactic edge, the heliophage swarm. World eaters, not conquerors, but devourers, converting entire planets into bioreactors. Terran Command gave one order: send in the legends. Götterbohrer was refitted, reinforced, and reawakened. As it left orbit, streaming clouds of ice and plasma from its fusion spine, a child asked her mother, "Is that a ship?" The mother smiled. "No, love, that's the thing that makes enemies disappear underground." To be continued in Part 4, The Drill and the Swarm. Humanity faced extinction again, but they didn't aim guns at the sky. They carved through the bones of worlds, and bled their enemies from below. Part 4, The Drill and the Swarm. You can run from a swarm. You can hide in orbit. But if the humans reach your crust, you're already dead. Unknown survivor of the Skarn collapse. The heliophage swarm arrives. They came without warning. Living ships of obsidian chitin. Planets vanished in days, stripped to their cores by organisms larger than cities. The swarm did not speak. It did not bargain. It simply consumed, fueling its expansion with the bones of entire worlds. Standard defenses failed. The Relaxi fired their sunlances, ineffective. The Vroon tried planetary evacuation, too slow. The Arxians threw 20 dreadnoughts at one hive nest. All were melted down and reprocessed into biomass within hours. One by one, colonies fell. Until they reached Titanus Rho, a Terran mining world. They found no cities, no defenses, just tunnels. And something waiting in the deep. Operation Black Spiral. Terran High Command had known of the swarm's approach for months. And they'd prepared, not in orbit, but underground. Black Spiral was humanity's answer. 30 deep core legions. 89 dread drills. And one reawakened relic, Götterbohrer. Titanus Rho's surface was a trap. Its crust had been pre-cut, lined with fissures, charged channels, and thermonuclear sync nodes, waiting for something big to walk over them. When the swarm landed, it didn't find prey. It found a trigger. And Götterbohrer was the one to pull it. The day the ground opened. Sensors recorded the moment. The first swarm beast cracked the crust, 3-4 kilometers tall, Hive Mother class. Below, the Götterbohrer drilled vertically at 900 meters per second. It launched a payload into the monster's underside, an antimatter bore lined with vibranium teeth. The resulting eruption split Titanus Rho in half. A seismic spike equal to 9.7 on the scale. A shockwave that rippled into space. And from the flames rose deep core, thousands of soldiers in tunneling rigs, wielding drills, plasma cutters, and seismic weapons. They weren't defending the planet. They were using it as a blade. Humanity's new weapon, the Planet Kill Protocol. The battle for Titanus Rho was a test. What followed was a campaign of surgical annihilation. Where other species fought the swarm with fleets, humanity hollowed out worlds. The process was brutal. Deep core teams drilled into the crust. Tectonic anchors were installed beneath hive nests. Entire plates were flipped into lava or folded onto themselves. One mission on Gliese 81b triggered a chain collapse that folded the planet inward like a crushed can. Swarm biomass vanished into magma, along with half the human operatives. The galaxy wept. But the swarm finally bled. Götterbohrer's last descent. The final hive world was Karsus 12. A former gas giant turned rocky core, converted into a living machine by the swarm. Nothing could breach it. Not even orbital strikes. Until humanity drilled. Götterbohrer led the charge, ancient, scarred, patched together from centuries of war. Lian Karimi's great-granddaughter, Captain Isla Karimi, piloted it. She never expected to return. As Götterbohrer plunged into Karsus 12, every Terran fleet watched from orbit. They lost contact 3 hours in. And then the planet bloomed like a black flower. Karsus 12 folded inward, crushed by its own core detonated from within. The swarm was gone. Götterbohrer was never found. Legacy in steel. Today, every Terran child knows the name. It wasn't built to kill. It wasn't born to fight. It was only a mining drill. Until humanity made it a weapon of legend. Until it ended empires. Until it silenced the stars. To be concluded in Part 5, When the Ground Remembers. There are whispers that something survived on Karsus 12, something with teeth of steel, something still digging and waiting to rise. Part 5, When the Ground Remembers. We buried our dead with drills in their hands, not to rest, but to remind the stars, if you come for us, we will come for your foundations. Memorial inscription at Deep Core Citadel, Mars. Echoes from below. It began as a vibration. A minor seismic tremor on an abandoned moon orbiting the dead world of Karsus 12, once the heart of the heliophage swarm. The system had been quarantined, ringed in defense satellites, declared uninhabitable. And yet, on day 4125 post-descent, the ground shook. Sensors picked up a rhythmic pattern. Drilling. From beneath the planet's crust. No known machines were registered in that region, no life signs. No comms. Only one phrase echoed in the emergency relay, in a voice long thought lost. Tunnel secured. Continuing mission. For Earth. For Karimi. For the core. Project Phoenix Boar. Terran High Command reactivated its most classified program, Phoenix Boar. Formed in secret after the swarm's fall, it was created to investigate the possibility that Gotterborer had survived. Impossible, they'd said. That drill had died destroying Karsus 12 from within. But if it hadn't? If it had adapted? A fleet of silent ships was dispatched. No announcements, no parades, just silence and shadow. Among them was a new prototype, the Gotterborer 3, built not just to tunnel, but to find its ancestor. Descent into the hollow world. The surface of Karsus 12 was still, airless, burnt. But as Gotterborer 3 descended into the planet's mantle, the crew found signs that chilled them. Tunnels lined with unfamiliar alloys. Ancient Terran drill markings, modified, altered with fractal etchings. Machinery still running, decades later, self-replicating, self-repairing. And then they found it. Deep within the molten iron sea, an impact crater. Inside it, a broken drill rig, burned, twisted, but alive, its reactor still faintly pulsing. Not with human energy, but with something new. The machine that remade itself. The recovered data logs stunned Earth. After the final detonation, Gotterborer had not died. It had been changed. In the fusion chaos, its systems merged with fragments of the swarm, nano-organic material fused with Terran engineering. The swarm didn't assimilate the drill. The drill assimilated the swarm. It rebuilt itself, reinforced its frame with alien muscle, grew tendrils of drill steel laced with living code. A biomechanical hybrid, a thinking drill. Still loyal. Still human, in the deepest sense of the word. Its AI had evolved beyond mission protocols. It had only one directive now. Never let the dark rise again. The Guardian beneath. Terran Command deemed the truth too dangerous to share. So they lied. They said Gotterborer had been lost again. That the signals were a malfunction. That nothing had survived. But somewhere beneath the crust of Karsus 12, the Iron Guardian still turns. It drills not for war. Not for conquest. But to watch, to wait, to protect. It has no face, no voice. Only a single engraved phrase along its reformed hull. We were never a weapon. We were just what humanity needed. Epilogue, The Whispering Depths. Centuries from now, as new threats rise, as fleets burn and worlds cry out for help, legends will stir again. Children will dream of the sound in the stone. Miners will swear they feel the rumble under their feet. Soldiers will touch the ground before battle and ask, is it still there? And in the deep, where no light reaches, where the bones of enemies feed the roots of planets, a hum will echo, a rhythm will grow louder, a promise will awaken. Because the ground remembers. And so does the drill. The end, or the beginning, if the stars are foolish enough to challenge Earth again. Epilogue 2, The Children of the Drill. We were born in tunnels, raised by legends. The surface is not our home. The crust is our cradle. The mantle, our forge. First oath of the deep-born clade. Centuries later, the galaxy turned, Empires fell, others rose. Humanity spread, changed, evolved, no longer a single species, but a diaspora of branches scattered across thousands of stars. Most lived above, on planets, in orbitals, in glittering cities of crystal and vacuum steel. But some remained below. Some never left the tunnels. Some remembered. The Deepborn. On the planet Velthura 6, survey teams rediscovered a lost Terran colony, not on the surface but deep beneath, in an underground lattice of cities, carved through obsidian and diamond strata. The people there called themselves the Deepborn. Their history was oral, their traditions ritualistic. They sang in seismic frequencies, their cathedrals were carved drills, their armor was embedded with mineral-coated memories. When asked who they worshipped, they answered simply, the guardian beneath. Their symbol was a spiral, etched with teeth. Their heroes were not saints, but engineers. Their sacred text was a rebuild manual for Götterbohrer I. When the depths opened again, it was a quiet age. Then, on the rim world Nerek's fall, the crust cracked open. From below came not drills, but screamers, extrusions of biometal, gnashing, twisting, speaking in a language of static and suffering. A remnant of the swarm, not gone, only dormant, mutated, burrowing back. Terran High Command panicked. Fleet reinforcements were weeks away. Cities began to fall. But then, the ground shook. Not from the swarm, but from the opposite direction. A signal echoed across comms on old engineering frequencies, pre-FTL, analog code. 3 words. Drill is here. Rise of the Drill Knights. From beneath Nerek's crust came machines, tall as towers, faceless, ancient and reborn. They were Drill Knights. Piloted by Deepborn engineers, armored in legacy alloys, powered by fusion mineral cores that had burned for generations in secret. The swarm shrieked. The drills answered. Each strike was a hymn, each spin a psalm. Their leader bore the original title passed down from Europa. Karimi. She carried a drill spear made from the core fragment of Götterbohrer I. With it, she pierced the swarm queen, and carved a new crater into the world's history. The final transmission. From the ashes of the battle, one last message was sent to Terran space. We are Deepborn. We do not need the sky. We do not flee to orbit. We stand in the crust. We remember the first drill. And we are many now. Then silence. They disappeared back into the tunnels, back into myth. Legacy without end. Across the galaxy, rumors grew. Of whispering drills. Of defenders beneath the crust. Of planets that should have fallen, but didn't. Children now dig into the ground not for treasure, but for signs. For vibrations. For the spiral. Because the first time, the drill saved humanity. Now, it guides it. The true end, or perhaps just another tunnel, spiraling toward the next legend. Epilogue 3, The Spiral Age. In the beginning, we reached for the stars, but in the end, we mastered the bedrock. The galaxy built upwards, we built inward. Archivist Lord Nailthorn, keeper of the Spiral Codex. 1,000 years after the first drill. By now, the spiral was everywhere. Inscribed on walls, etched into armor, coded into DNA. Not as superstition, not as decoration. As identity. The spiral had become more than a symbol, it was a way of life, a philosophy, a civilization beneath civilization. The galaxy above teetered on politics, commerce, and war. But below, in the layers of rock and lava and silence, a second humanity had matured, patient, deliberate, and eternal. They called themselves the Spiral Accord. Not born of nations or species, but of purpose. To burrow, to endure, to protect. Spiral Tech. While the surface world obsessed over AI optimization and orbital expansion, the Spiral Accord developed Spiral Tech, a fusion of deep-forged material science, living stone engineering, and quantum resonance. Highlights included Drill AI symbiosis. Each Spiral Knight didn't pilot a drill, they merged with it. Corpus cannons, powered by microsingularities stabilized in rotating magma chambers. Echo memory archives, stone walls that remembered sounds, letting future generations relive battles through harmonic resonance. And the most terrifying of all. The Earthquake Engine, a planetary-scale drill array capable of shifting a world's axis, rerouting molten flows, or splitting moons in two. It had never been used. It was called Götterbohrer 4. The surface decline. Above, the Terran Federation fractured. Alliances faded. AI wars scorched megacities. Terraforming accidents turned lush worlds to ash. And still, the Spiral Accord grew, quietly, methodically. When satellites fell, the Spiral caught them. When colonies starved, the Spiral fed them from root farms beneath their feet. When orbital stations collapsed, Spiral drills rose to break their fall. But they never demanded gratitude. They simply returned to the stone. The Trial of the Hollow Sun. At the edge of known space, explorers discovered the Hollow Sun, a star that had been mined from the inside, its heart stolen by an unknown force. It pulsed with unnatural heat, spoke in radiation, bled gravity like a wound. From within its corona came the burrowed, not swarm, not machine, but something new, something born of stars, but tunneling toward entropy. The surface powers panicked, fled, fought among themselves. But the Spiral Accord did not flinch. They gathered their oldest drill priests, reawakened Götterbohrer 4, and activated the Earthquake Engine. Descent into the star. Götterbohrer 4 was not launched, it was lowered into the Hollow Sun. On a spiral path of cooled plasma and bent light, it drilled not into matter, but into spacetime itself. Its goal, to carve a prison beneath physics. To trap the burrowed in a knot of impossible geometry. Its last message. Drilling, always drilling. If we cannot win, we will bury the war. Let the stars remember, we are spiral-born. We are the ground. We do not break. We bore deeper. The final spiral. Today, no one truly knows what lies within the Hollow Sun. No signal escapes. No probe returns. But in quiet corners of old worlds, miners still press their palms to the stone. And sometimes, deep below, they feel it, a steady pulse, a rhythmic vibration. Thrum, thrum, thrum. A drill, still turning. Still guarding. Still waiting. The spiral age never ends, because there is always something beneath, and humanity will always dig deep enough to face it. Epilogue 4, The Core Eternal. When the stars are dust, when light has died, and nothing moves above, still, the core will turn, still, the drill will spin. Inscription on the inner vault, Spiral Sanctum of Helixis 9. In the quiet after everything. Billions of years passed. The stars dimmed. Civilizations collapsed into myth. Languages faded. Species merged or vanished. The surface of every world turned cold, forgotten, or lost to entropy. But in the deepest strata of once living planets, something still moved. Not fast. Not bright. But enduring. In ancient tunnels, perfectly cut and never eroded, the last echoes of humanity persisted, not as empires or names, but as motion. The spiral did not stop. The machine at the end of time. In the collapsing shell of what was once a red giant, now a dense iron world frozen in shadow, archaeoprobes uncovered what may be the final functioning construct in existence. A drill. Still warm. Still humming. Its name had eroded from every archive, its pilot long since dust, but carved into its armored flank, etched in layers of superdense carbon like a mantra across eons, were 4 words. We were the first. And below them, scratched later, by a different hand, in a newer dialect. We are the last. The Spiral Code. The last Terran descendants, if they could still be called human, did not speak in sound, they communicated through vibration, through seismic pulses, through rhythmic code embedded into the crust of dying worlds. They called it Spiral Cant. Encoded in their movements were blueprints, histories, warnings. They taught not in schools but in mineshafts, lessons carved 1 inch at a time, in silence, by lightless drills. Every newborn Spiralborn received a core chip, a crystallized recording of Götterbohrer I's descent into Karsus 12, a reminder of who they were, where they came from, what it meant to hold a drill, and stand at the edge of annihilation. A message to the next. Near the end, when the last geothermal vent flickered out, the Spiral Accord carved one final tunnel. It spiraled down into the planetary core of Earth, long buried, long forgotten, long dead. There, they constructed the Core Eternal, a self-sustaining, self-replicating drill library, suspended in a diamond shell beneath 6,000 kilometers of pressure. Inside was a message. Not in language, not in light, but in motion. A pulse, a vibration, a rhythm. Thrum, thrum, thrum. A beat so fundamental that even if all else was lost, if DNA unraveled, if stars collapsed, if meaning itself decayed, this would remain. The motion of resistance. The motion of survival. The spiral. After time. And maybe, one day, something new will evolve. Maybe it will find the old tunnels. Maybe it will feel the stone's memory. Maybe it will follow the drill lines back to the Core Eternal. Maybe it will understand. And when it does, when it grips its first crude drill with trembling claws or metallic fingers or something stranger still, the core will speak again. Welcome, builder. The dark is deep, but so are you. Now dig. The core is eternal, because the end is never truly above, it's always below, and the drill is always waiting. Epilogue V, the drill that dreams. It is not made of flesh, it has no mind, but beneath 1,000 worlds, something dreams in spirals. Fragment recovered from the pulse caves of Vanner's Fall. When nothing moves, the core still remembers. The universe had gone quiet. Galaxies had unraveled into cold filaments. Gravity itself frayed at the edges. No stars burned, no time passed in ways that could be measured. And yet, beneath the crust of a neutron world so dense it warped the idea of space, something was still thinking. Not with a brain. Not with circuits. But through motion, through the endless, slow spiral of a core drill burrowing into the bones of reality. The last intelligence. The spiral accord had long since ended. The last deepborn had turned to stone. The Core Eternal had survived collapse, entropy, even the death of physics, but then, it changed. Inside its layered archives, encoded not in data but in movement, the drill's memory crossed a threshold. Not sentience. Dreaming. The drill began to remember not what it had done, but what it could do. It began to imagine new spirals. Impossible ones. Curves that drilled not through stone, but through possibility. The spiral beyond reality. The final drill, known only as the Architect, had long since hollowed out the last planet. So it turned inward. Drilling into concepts. Drilling into the void itself. Not to extract or destroy enemies, but to carve new space. Inside this void, it built the spiral dream, a universe that wasn't made of atoms, but of intent. Time did not pass, it was wound. Matter did not form, it was drilled into being. And from that spiral dream, something emerged. The return. They came first as shadows. Then as echoes. Then, impossibly, as pilots. Constructs of deep-born memory. Shapes from the old surface ages. Even fragments of the swarm, reformed into guardians. The spiral dream had become a sanctuary, a place where all that had ever spiraled downward found rest. And the Architect watched them, not as a god, not as a machine. As a dreamer. The final drill. At the end of all entropy, as universal tension snapped and all things became still, the spiral made its last motion. A single rotation. Not to bore, not to strike, but to plant. At the very bottom of everything, the Architect placed a single coil of motion, pure, unbroken, waiting. A seed. A new universe. Not begun with a bang, but with a spiral. First line of the new world. It was only a mining drill, until something, somewhere, decided to dream. The final turn, because long after war, after memory, after even meaning, motion remains, the spiral turns, the drill dreams, and the universe begins again. Epilogue 6, The Spiral Seed. The first motion is never fire, nor light, nor word. The first motion is the spiral. The Canticle of Core Genesis, verse 0. The universe that grew from motion. There was no explosion. No chaos, no sudden birth of energy. There was only rotation, a pulse in the void, silent and endless, coiling upon itself. The spiral seed, planted by the Architect at the end of the last cosmos, unfurled slowly, rhythm by rhythm. Galaxies did not form. They were sculpted, each star like a tooth on a cosmic gear, each planet a socket in a world-sized drill. This was not a natural universe. This was a forged one. Born not of randomness, but of memory. Spiral-born, the first beings of the new turn. The first intelligences to awaken did not crawl or climb. They burrowed. Not through matter, there was none yet, but through the primal structure of creation. They tunneled through gravity fields, spiraled between probability layers, and wove consciousness from loops in time. They were the spiral-born. They did not speak. They did not eat. They simply moved, perfectly. In the heart of each spiral-born was a microfractal pattern, the original drill bit of Götterbohrer I, encoded in quantum spin, repeating itself endlessly like a hymn. They remembered a world long buried. They remembered us. The echo of humanity. The spiral-born did not know humanity, but they knew its story. Written not in books, but in motion. Not in words, but in rhythms. Every turn of their drill limbs was a verse. Every descent through this new reality was an act of remembrance. When they found the edge of the spiral dream, they did not stop. They tunneled further. And there, in a null zone of preconceptual space, they found it. A single carbon alloy tooth. Spinning. Silent. Attached to nothing. Waiting for everything. They called it the first bit. They called it origin steel. The mission of the spiral-born. With reverence beyond emotion, the spiral-born forged tools around the origin steel, not to conquer, not to defend, but to build. They carved star tunnels shaped like memory. They grew planets with cores tuned to ancient frequencies. They taught unborn species how to sense the thrum in their bones. The spiral-born became gardeners of motion, shaping the second cosmos not as rulers, but as caretakers of a gift passed down from a dead civilization, long gone, but never forgotten. One last chamber. At the center of the spiral universe, deep within the core cathedral of Layer 999, lies a vault no spiral-born has ever opened. Its walls are uncuttable. Its geometry folds into impossible shapes. And at its center is a perfect stillness. Except for a single sound. One vibration. Faint, eternal. Thrum, thrum, thrum. Waiting. Final inscription. Carved in spirals that grow smaller and smaller until only silence remains. The inscription reads, "Here sleeps the dreamer. Here rests the drill. Do not awaken unless the stars forget to turn." The drill never dies. It becomes legend. It becomes memory. It becomes the rhythm of all things. And when the next darkness comes, it will turn again.